Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of Tech Tips. My name is Lucas Morneau, and I'm the production manager here at Stritz Gallery. Today, we'll be taking a look at the Canon C100 Mark II, a pro-level camera with extremely reliable results. So, let's take a look. The Canon C100 Mark II is a professional-level cinema camera that features a Super 35mm CMOS image sensor. This sensor is actually a 4K sensor that is downsampled in camera to 1080p. So, video captured at 1080p in this camera retains a bit more detail than any other cameras with a max resolution of 1080p. In the case, the Canon C100 comes packed with all of its modular components, including a top handle with 2 XLR inputs and a pistol grip. We've included the Canon 24-105mm f4L lens in this kit, though this can be replaced with any Canon EF mount lens. The kit also includes 2 batteries, battery charger, and AC adapter. Next, let's go over the specifications of the Canon C100 Mark II. As mentioned, the Canon C100 downsamples 4K footage down to 1080p. This footage is processed in either AVC HD or MP4 codecs, with max bit rates of 24 megabits per second and 35 megabits per second, respectively. For those wondering which codec will be best for their project, generally, AVC HD is recommended for long duration of recording, whereas MP4 is better for web and smartphone sharing. As the Canon C100 features a dual SD card slot, AVC HD and MP4 can be recorded simultaneously. The Canon C100 has a max frame rate of 59.95 iframes per second at 1080p, both in AVC HD and MP4. Therefore, the Canon C100 can be used for both creating extremely smooth-looking video that's perfect for sports and news applications, as well as used for slow motion effects, slowing playback down to 40%. The latter can be done in camera, though sound is not recorded, and the camera cannot be using the dual slot record function. There is a slew of buttons on the Canon C100, including both pre-programmed and programmable buttons, reducing the amount of time spent navigating through complex menus and submenus. Waveforms, focus peaking, zebras, iris, magnification, and more can all be done through simple clicks of a button. The Canon C100 has amazing low-light capabilities, shooting up to a maximum ISO of 102,400, with up to 12 stops of dynamic range. It also features a series of built-in neutral density filters. These ND filters allow you to stop down your image by up to 6 stops of light, just by simply sliding the ND wheel. The Canon C100 features both a 3.5-inch hinged OLED display and tilting 1.23 megapixel color electronic viewfinder. The screen folds out, protecting it when not in use, and can be rotated 270 degrees, allowing subjects to see themselves in their video feed without the need for external monitors and recorders. Having both a folding screen and a tilting EVF allows filmmakers and camera operators to film in any position, ensuring that they can monitor their shots one way or another. The Canon C100 can record in Canon Log, a setting that helps protect the dynamic range of an image, flattening the shadows and highlights so that they can be further controlled in post. A built-in LUT, or lookup table, can be applied to the monitor, displaying a more accurate version of what the video will look like in post. The Canon C100 has an array of ports and jacks: mini XLR for the top handle, 35mm input and output, AV out, micro USB, HDMI out, and DC in are all included in this camera. This, on top of the added 2 XLR ports, makes this camera extremely versatile. Next, let's go over how to use the Canon C100. First things first, let's turn on the camera and select our codec, bitrate, and frame rate. we'll turn on the camera by switching the power knob to the camera setting. We'll then push the menu button below the camera's display. Using the joystick either below the camera's display or on the pistol grip, we'll navigate to the Other Functions menu, which has a wrench for a symbol. From here, center-click the joystick and navigate Other Functions until you see Movie Format. Center-click, and from here, you can choose to either film in AVC HD codec or the MP4 codec. Select your codec, and then we'll select our bitrate and frame rate, navigating the Other Functions menu until you reach either AVC or MP4. Here, select the codec you've chosen earlier. From here, you can change the bitrate and frame rate, though do note that some frame rates are not available for some higher bit rates. Now that we've figured out how the camera will process and output our video, we'll now exit the menu by pushing the menu button again. This will return us to the live camera feed. If there's no information showing on your screen, push the display button below the screen. You'll be able to see all your camera settings for shooting. To change your ISO, we'll push the ISO gain button, button number 13, on the side of the camera. We'll then choose our ISO by pushing the joystick up or down. If you're planning to shoot in the Canon log setting for further color control, ISO 850 will be your best option according to Canon. To change your white balance, we'll push the white balance or WB button on the side of the camera. From here, you can select either a preset or manually dial in the color temperature measured in Kelvin units. To manually control the ISO, select the K preset. Then, push the joystick to the right to navigate to the Kelvin rating. Push up or down to manually select your Kelvin rating. To change your aperture, the easiest way is to point your camera at a gray card and push Auto Iris or button 12. This will correct the aperture so that whatever is in the middle of the image is exposed as your middle gray. If you're recording in an extremely bright setting, you can use the built-in ND filters if the camera is unable to stop the exposure down. Next, let's talk mics. The Canon C100 does feature a built-in mono microphone, but the main feature is the top handle with 2 XLR inputs. Not only can you plug microphones in this way, but this handle also has manual controls for each XLR input and even sends phantom power to mics that need it. Once we have all that set up, we can now push record. And guess what? There's 3 record buttons, so you can choose whichever one is easiest to push. Finally, let's go over the pros and cons of the Canon C100 Mark II. The pros include its extreme versatility, making the Canon C100 perfect for anything from documentaries and short films to sports and live news events. It features 2 XLR ports with manual control and phantom power, making it easy to plug in pro-level microphones. Its modular design not only makes the Canon C100 super comfortable to hold and maneuver, but it also allows the camera to be made smaller for shots in tight spaces. And finally, the Canon BP95 batteries provide hours of power and even have battery indicators built in. On the downside, even though this camera has a 4K sensor, it does downsample the footage to 1080p. And while this 1080p footage is pretty, 4K would be nice too. And it would be nice to be able to record in RAW or a better codec such as XF AVC. In conclusion, the Canon C100 Mark II is an overall fantastic performer with very few flaws. For those looking to rent the Canon C100 or other equipment from Stritz & Fawcett, links are down below. My name is Lucas Morneau, this is Tech Tips, and I wish you all the best.